This is the Unscripted Podcast. So, they're not doing it right.
What do you mean?
The church is not doing it right.
What is that?
Well, I mean, just in general, just evangelism. And really, the way that we should start this podcast, I think, is not the way I just started, but
You mean on the negative?
On the negative, yeah.
Yeah.
But going from a trunk or treat to the master's feet.
That's such a Bob thing to say. You know, I mean, like, it would take me 20 years to come up with something like that.
Oh, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. But, I mean, that's literally what just happened. Like, is your shirt dry now?
No, but I tell you this, I've learned something.
Yeah, you got something up on that right side. Chris has got wet sleeves. We just had a baptism.
Hey, it's nice, too, because, you know, this cool air blowing on you, you know, cools you. It makes you good and cool, too.
Yeah, when it's 94 outside.
Yeah, in the shade. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
South Mississippi.
Well, it's a blessing, right? You know, the gospel always works.
It always does.
And, you know, there's just this, I've said this before, but there's a word that's killing the Lord's church, and it's evangelism.
Yeah.
And the reason why is in our pulpits, we talk about it. We talk about the need of it.
Well, and that's where the thrust of it's been, is the pulpit only.
Well, and it's from a, let me make sure that I don't say, let me think of how to say this. So, and that's all that's been done, even in the pulpit, is talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's just this thing that we must need to discuss, right?
Yeah. And look, we get it. There's some 1%ers out there.
Absolutely.
There's some brothers in the church and sisters in the church who are working it, and they're actually doing it. But the general overarching theme is, let's invite people to our 3 hours a week, and that's going to be the thrust of our evangelism.
Yeah, and
come to this event, come to this whatever.
Yep, and then on Wednesday night we're studying the book of Romans or something like that, and you know, we're studying the book of Romans, and we're studying, you know, meat offered to idols or something like that, which is important to study in the book of Romans.
You need to study it all.
Yeah, I'm not saying you don't need to study it, but I'm just saying that that's not a life-changing study.
Yeah,
you know, for the alien sinner, right? I mean, there's very few things you're going to read about encapsulated in, and I'm glad that we spend the time picking apart verses piece by piece. You know,
I'll text you.
But the challenge is that when we think that just hanging a shingle out front that says Church of Christ on it,
we're good. We're good to go.
Is our mode of evangelism. It's just not going to work.
That's right. And so we had a last year we made as church leadership, we made a decision and said, all right, we're not going to have Sunday night service. Instead, we're going to have a trunk or treat on October 31st. And that was a decision that we prayerfully made. And we understood, too, that might bring some challenges with the church. And so we tried to be clear and up front. Now, I want everybody to understand, we met that morning. We worshiped God. We took the Lord's Supper. And so we told our church family, all right, here's what we're going to do. We want you to be praying about this because we have these window opportunities, and hopefully we can get somebody through our doors.
Yeah, you've said this a couple times in a unique way, and I may mess this up by saying this, you know, so you correct me if I don't get it right, but you know, we get these opportunities to let people peek behind our curtain of our family, and that's what we wanted to see the trunk or treat as. Yeah, you know, and so we wanted it. Now you think about this. There's probably 50 other churches in Hattiesburg that's doing trunk or treats at any given Halloween. I don't know. It may be 250. I don't know how many it is.
And they're probably bigger to do things than what we did, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'd say I did a pretty big to do thing.
Yeah.
Bob.
I'd say
I did a pretty big.
You did. And it was cool. Chris brought back duck hunt and a pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, the only reason, so the reason why I did that was, just so everybody knows what I did.
It was for evangelism.
Yeah, it was for this one reason. I brought my trailer, and I took my trailer and we stickered it up on the side.
This was his single wide trailer.
Right. Well, we had to move out for a week.
No, Chris had an enclosed trailer.
Yeah, I took my enclosed trailer, and we did up a duck hunt theme on the side of it, and we printed off the copy of the Duck Hunt from the original Nintendo.
Brought Duck Hunt back from 1989
or whatever,
92, whatever,
85, I think actually. But I put it in my trailer, and the reason why I put it in my trailer was so they had to come inside, and so if to come inside to play, and then. This is how you know you've got good elders, because I told them, I said, I'm going to give away to the highest score at the end of the night a Chick-fil-A gift card to whoever kills the most ducks points or whatever it is. I'm going to give them a Chick-fil-A gift card. But in order to win it, they got to text me a picture of their score with their name. So then I got their name and their number.
Yeah.
And one of our elders said, hey, here's an idea. Just give away a general drawing, and you'll go there. Also, text me your name and number, and we'll put you in the general drawing. And that way, if you don't necessarily get the high, because somebody may come in there and just
stink it up,
stink it up bad. Look like they're shooting a gun backwards, and so
So one of the elders said, "Oh, this is a marketing scheme." Somebody might not.
They may not. They may think this thing ain't.
Well, I only scored 7 points. I'm not going to text them my name and number.
Right. And so, and what was even better was, I said, I just got to go get some gift cards. Well, one of the other elders said, I'll just send my wife to go get them. Mm-hmm. So he sent his wife to go get them, and I was going to hand him the money. He's like, no, we'll pay for it. And so he got them gift cards, and so everybody that came in the trailer. I got to hang out with them and talk with them and let their kids shoot the ducks as many times. There's a line out there.
Oh, yeah. We're going back after the baptism today. We're going back looking at pictures. And I guess, is it okay to say her name on here? Or
yeah, sure, I reckon so. Right. I wouldn't imagine it.
Anyways, we were looking for pictures of her. And so I'll let you say her name because I might mess it up. But
Ambrielle.
Yeah, Ambrielle. So I probably would have really got it wrong. So anyways, I told her, I said, I made that comment from a trunk or treat to the master's feet, and I told her I wanted a picture of her, and when I was going back looking on my phone, and Ben was looking on his, and he had a picture of the line outside of your duck hunt trailer, not of her, but we were looking, and I was
see if you could find her.
Yeah, and we were looking at a line of people, and
she came.
She came to the trunk or treat. That's right.
And so she got to be with our whole church family, right?
That's right.
And
now she's a part of our church family.
And now she's a part of it. And the kind of the way it went was, I don't think she
perfectly.
Right. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. I don't think she came back for.
It was a while. It was a little while,
2-3 months, maybe, something like that. I mean, it was after the first of the year.
And before we go further in the story, so wherever you're at, if you're a church leader, or if you're, or you can play this for your church leaders. Like, here's a successful story, and this story goes even further, and we'll probably go into that part too. So this story is successful where not only one but two people from our trunk or treat. 2 people have been saved as a result of our trunk or treat. And guess what? I was going back looking at pictures on my phone, and guess who popped up on there? Another family who was here for the first time on a Sunday morning all together. You know which family that is.
Oh yeah.
We'll I don't want to reveal that one yet because they may listen.
Yeah. Let's hold that one off. Yeah. So that's an interesting and all.
So him and his wife and their kids. So he's came some. I've got to study with him tomorrow at 12.
Good, keep it up.
And so he and
this is the perfect way that the church works together. And let's talk about this. Okay?
Yeah, that's right.
Let's just quit talking about let's just talk about the story. All right.
Okay.
So she comes 2 or 3 months later, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't remember when she comes, but she comes, and unfortunately, I don't always remember everybody that I meet. Mm-hmm. And she had been here. She'd been here to the trunk or treat a couple years. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm. I did.
And so I remember meeting her.
I did today. I know now.
I remember meeting her. See, the problem is that her brother brought her.
Right.
And so her brother bringing her, I met, I talked to her brother, right? And he's introduced me, hey, this is my sister. And, hey, how are you? And then,
Yeah, we had the brother in our sights. We were going after him.
Exactly, because I had optics on him.
And we had a connection with him.
And so this is me being stupid, right? But I was just putting optics on him, and then...
You were being stupid.
And it fell off on the weight. But because of that, I didn't think about her. Well, when she shows back up, she's like, hey, I'm this guy's sister. I was like, okay, I remember you. And so she comes for a couple weeks to our assembly. And then, I don't know, it was probably a month later, she invites another guy.
Yeah, she starts showing up because they were sitting right behind me, and I'm like, okay, is this like her boyfriend or something?
Well, they're about the same age.
About the same age, and it's like, no, it's just a friend.
Yeah, I asked her, I was like, so is this your boyfriend? And she's like, no, he works with my husband. And
it's like, but we're coming to church together.
Yeah, and I was like, well,
what?
Where's your husband? And he's like, well, he's working. And so I've talked to her a couple times at this point, and I can't get her. You mean I can't nail down a time when I can. So, like, one of the first things I'm going to try to do is, like, let's just go get some lunch. Let me buy you lunch together, right? Well, I don't feel comfortable just buying her lunch, right? So I wanted her and her husband to buy lunch. Well, so we're trying to work on those details, right? Well,
he's not an easy horse to lasso.
Right. But
get to lunch.
Her friend, he was easy, right? Like, hey, let me buy you lunch. Okay, cool. Yeah. So we take him out, buy him lunch. And I don't know if Ben, did you go with us the first time? I can't remember being.
Yeah, so the friend is Taylor.
The friend is Taylor, right? So Taylor, comes back the next week with her, and we, just chat this and that and the other. I set up a study with Taylor because at this point I know that I can study with Taylor by myself, right? It doesn't require the lady rule. And so I set up the study with Taylor. Now you got to remember the whole church is involved in this, right?
Right.
So the whole church on Sunday morning, greeting them, loving on them, being friendly. You got Ben and all those guys that are the 20-year-old crowd, are meeting them, talking to them. I set up a study with them, and we have our conversation. We study, I don't know, a month or so or something like that. Tuesday afternoon, one Tuesday, 2 or 3 months ago, I baptized him. Well, so I asked Ambrielle, I was like, she said, you've been having all these studies with Taylor. And I was like, well, I'd like to have those with you, but I'd like to also have them with your husband. And she's like, I just don't think that's going to happen right now. I said, well, I'll tell you what, you set a time and I'll answer to the best of my ability the questions that you have. And so she said, well, I've got several. And I said, like what? And she said, I don't know how a person knows that they're saved. And I said, well, why do you have that as a question for?
Perfect question.
I know, perfect question. That's a T question.
Thank you, Lord.
I know, that's a T question. That's one on a T for you. And
boom, we're going to knock that one out the park.
Right. And she said, well, my grandma told me, that's what she said. My grandma told me that if you're saved, you'll just know it. Well, I don't know how you just know it. And she said, that's just not good enough for me.
Yeah.
Does the Bible answer that question? Yes. So that's what we started with. How can we?
Grandma wasn't wrong.
No, well, yeah, you're right.
And that wording in that context.
Yeah, she was right in her words, right? But she meant
she meant something different.
Yeah, she meant you'll feel it.
You'll feel it, yeah. So kind of a side story to that goes right with that. I asked her when y'all came and interrupted our study. I mean, abruptly. My goodness.
Yeah, well, you were doing the same thing this morning.
Yeah, we're studying with somebody else, and Courtney's like, well, she was following the lady rule, like she was my lady, for the study today, and Pat was yesterday, and Andrella is tomorrow. So she goes, you're like, can I borrow you to do something? Asking Courtney, and she's like, well, I'm in the study with him. Like, what's more important than that? Well, we need to have a baptism.
Right.
Yes, we'll put the world on hold for that.
Right.
And but
and this is how you see the church is important, right? Because she asked me, she's like, well, So people have what we kind of call these death row questions, right? Last week, Ambrielle, she's a young lady, so she had her hair all fixed up and this and that and the other, and her braids in and this and that and the other. She asked the death row questions. What I mean by that is, she was that way Sunday when she came, was what happens afterwards? What happens after I become a Christian? Mm-hmm. I know you don't get baptized again.
You said death row questions?
Death throws. So like you shoot a deer, right? Mm-hmm. And
what happens after that?
Yeah. When he's in his death throes, he's you start tracking him, and you find him. You ever seen one where they're flopping?
Oh,
and
no,
and you have to cut their neck or something like that. Well, they have those death throw question, where they're a dying man's questions, and so this today, so I have this thing that I'll do with people, and when I think they're getting close, I'll take them, like if we're at my house, I'll take them down to the pond, and I'll show them the pond, and I'll talk to them about what that pond can be. Or here, I'll take them up there and show them the baptistry at the front of the church, and I'll show them the baptistry. I'll show them the water and the little chlorine thing
that
floats around in there.
Kept getting in y'all's way today.
Yeah, bumping around in there, and I'll show them the baptistry, and then I'll leave them. I just leave them by themselves, and I feel like if they want that, and it's amazing how long people sit there and stare at that water. And they just stare at it, because what they're doing is they're having this whole conversation in their head.
They're having a Bible study in their head.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And I just leave them alone. I just walk away.
Absolutely.
I just go back to my office or whatever, and then if they want me to come back down there, I'll come back down there. Well, today she showed up with her hair, without her hair all fixed up and her braids out of her hair and everything like that. And I thought, well,
she came ready to get wet.
She came ready to get wet today.
Yeah. And so I asked her after y'all told us, I said, I see you got any questions? She said, I don't know. He answered them all. She said, all the basic questions that I have about salvation, they've been answered. I'm ready.
And the blessing of it is that all of the basic questions about salvation like that, God answers very detailed.
Sure.
He doesn't leave any of that stuff open for let your light shine before men. Well, afterwards you're coming down the hallway, and she said, what'd she say? Like, I feel like I got a mission, or what'd she say?
Yeah, I think she said, I told her, I said, so now you're in Christ, so now you got this awesome responsibility. She said, yeah, I feel like I'm on a mission.
And you looked at me with a smile on your face, and what'd you tell her?
I said, well, don't feel like you are, just know that you are, or something like that.
Yeah, and
you're on a mission now.
Yeah, and so, the thing of it is that God is, but her mission is going to be different than your mission, right? But the marching orders are the same.
That's right.
How her mission in life will be now with
it's part of the thing. Kids, with her brother. Those are things I prayed about. When she came out of the water, is her influence on.
That's right.
On two men that I know directly, and then her children.
But the end goal, for every person that's in the world is the same. God lays that out very clearly, and I dare say there's not a single person in the church that's listening to this podcast especially that can't tell you what it takes to become a Christian. That they can't tell somebody, 6 or 8 simple verses. You got to remember that when the disciples went everywhere in the first century preaching the gospel, they didn't have Acts 2 verse 38 to quote. Yeah. What they had to do was just tell them that there was a person who came to earth, but he was God's son. And he came because he wanted to save us from our own selves. And he wanted us to live with him forever. And because of that, there's a way that you can be there with him. And it's going to cost your allegiance to him the rest of your life. And you're going to have to give your life to him, and you're going to need to be born again. And that's all they would have been able to tell them. They wouldn't have been able to quote Acts 2 and verse 38 or Romans 6 or Galatians 3 or 1 Peter 3 or any of those verses.
Mark 16, yeah.
All those things that
Oh, we lived out Mark 16:16. Just want you to know that.
Right.
I was there when he said it.
Yeah, exactly. And so So, but that's what they would have went everywhere doing. And that's what God requires of us today is to go everywhere doing it. And so because of that, because of our trunk or treat now, it just boils down to motive and intent.
That's right. And that's what we told the church was, all right, you can see this as I'm just going to hand out candy, but if all that we're doing as a church, if we're shutting down assembly to just hand out candy and it's just going to be about the candy, then what's the purpose of it? And so, but we had that we were very intentional about it and said, these are souls, and we're gonna try to affect souls. So don't ever forget it whenever you're interacting with people today.
So just think about this, Bob. In our last 2 trunk or treats, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that have been baptized because of it. Right?
Yep. Come back and you'll get a little more story right after the break.
Oftentimes when we think about spiritual decisions in our life, we don't think about how we spend our money. We understand that managing your finances can be a huge struggle for a lot of people. And that's why we set up a weekend on October the 1st and 2nd here at the Kensington Woods Church of Christ that is designed to help you with basic financial fundamentals. We're going to talk about things about how to set up a budget and other tools that can set you up for success for years to come. We want to encourage you to join us on October the 1st and 2nd. For more information, we ask that you look us up on Facebook or visit us on our website at kwchurch.org. I really hope to see you guys there. Thank you for your time.
All right, so I'm not ringing a bell with the other people.
What did Aiden?
Who did swallow Joe? Who did what?
Last year, Aiden comes and he says, "Daddy, I want to do the dress up thing for Halloween." I was like, "Aiden, you're 12.
Oh yeah.
You're 12."
That's right.
And he's like, and I know what he wants to do.
The Army family. Yeah.
Yeah. Is he wants the free candy, right? But Aiden loves all this soldier war stuff and everything, and which I'm glad they do it. Whatever, it's fine. But so he says, I want to dress up as an Army Ranger or sniper or something like that. And I said, okay. So we asked one of our members. Yeah. Which he's about, 6'2" or something like that.
Redheaded and ugly.
Yeah, right. And I asked him, I was like, hey, can Aiden, wear your stuff? He's like, yeah, but he's just going to look terrible in it, Yeah. And so he said, but I know a guy that's the same size as him, and he's been on our podcast.
Right.
And
so Mike Ranger was on our podcast. It just aired, we won't know when this one airs, but
a while back.
Yeah.
It was a soldier and
something about the soldiers in today's time.
Yeah, soldiers.
On Spotify, it was a soldier being a Christian and a soldier in 2022.
Yeah. And so, that was a direct result of our trunk or treat.
Yeah.
So,
Aiden wanted to dress up as a soldier.
And so Aiden is the average height of a full-grown Latino. and so.
Ranger Joe. Mike Ranger.
Yeah, and so, praise be to God. We set up a Bible study with him. Baptize him, his wife, his oldest daughter. From it. So that's
then they had a trunk last year. They
did. And so you think about that. Like that's 5 people, from our trunk or treat, and
trunk or treats. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 trunk or treats, 5 souls who were immersed into Christ.
Yeah, and so it's motive and intent, right? We can see these little things. Now, I know this will get aired in August or September or something like that. Yeah. And so we can see these events or things the same way we see our life. It's just something to do. Mm-hmm. I can see my life as just something that I've got to do that I can feel. We could have felt real good about handing out a bunch of candy.
Sure.
But that don't get anybody closer to heaven.
Yeah, if all we're doing is handing out stuff, then we're no better than any other nonprofit organization that's out there today.
And so, but we've got to compare that to our lives, because if all I'm doing in my life is just handing out candy, and my motives aren't getting people to heaven, then I'm not doing what the Lord told me to do.
That's right. And you got people on your kids' ball team. You got people in your workplace. There's just loads of opportunities around you right now for you to be planting seeds with people. It's a blessing when you can interact with somebody and their child, and then you just turn that into Bible study, and then next thing you know, like 3 years and they're still solid in the church, and it's a powerful thing after you've immersed them into Christ. And man, and it's like, because I picked your kid to be on my t-ball team from a tryout. Like, and honestly, what I saw in this kid, what I saw in Hunter Crittenden was spunk. Like, he didn't have the best ability, but that little ball was going, and I mean, he was going as hard as he could after it. Well, he had heart and spunk, and so that's what I wrote, heart and spunk. Well, his mama had heart and spunk too, and her heart needed to change, and she needed to get rid of the spunk, and and so. And I had to die herself.
Well, get ready for the spank.
Yeah. But so she just, she needed to study. Well, that's just an opportunity. Well, and it's pretty neat. I was scrolling on Facebook this morning and saw they got a new dog, and so still in contact with them,
Was times tough or something?
Yeah, well, I hadn't seen a post from them in a long time, and it's like now they got one of these little yappy, cute looking dogs that don't shed hair,
Right.
But
that's a lie, by the way.
That's a lie. So wherever you're at, like, be purposeful and be intentional about whatever it is that you're doing, because that's what our Savior did. Everywhere he went, everything he was doing.
Don't make it a word.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make evangelism just some word.
And don't start up some program.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean by evangelism is killing the church. It's killing the church because what we're doing is we're talking about how important it is and how it's this necessity and how we've got to be about doing it, and then we don't do a blooming thing about it.
Live it.
Yeah, that's all we're talking. I had a good friend of mine and probably one of the most well-known preachers in the church, and he sent me a message this morning and said, we need to write a book about what we're doing. And he said that to me. Now, this guy writes a lot of books, so that's a lot easier for him to say that than me, right? Mm-hmm. And, I mean, Beth Bishop, one of our members, said, you can always tell when Chris goes rogue and Jessica doesn't check his emails before he sends them out, And he said we need
You can get Ben to edit your book for you, spell check for you.
Yeah. He said,
Ben, spell Harley.
He said we need to write a book. He said you need to write a book. And,
bro, we ain't got time.
And that's what I said, man, nobody would read it, number one. And I said, number two, we've already got one.
We got too many Bible studies going on to write a book.
And I said,
that's why we've gone to one camera for the podcast, because Ben ain't got time to edit. He's doing so many Bible studies with people.
Yeah, and
so we're real sorry that our video quality's gone down on the podcast.
It's Ben's fault.
It's evangelism's fault.
Right. And so you think about those things, and what the Lord has asked us to do is like, when I was studying with Ambrielle, she said, coming here, it feels like we're having a conversation about how to get better instead of you trying to entertain me to get my money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought I need to write that down. Mm-hmm. That's just a. And so what she meant by that was when she comes to our services, not just me, but whether you're preaching or Ben's preaching or whatever, whoever, it's just we're having this conversation about how to get better. Well, she said, and she asked me, she said, I don't know if sometimes I struggle because I don't know if I believe it because you believe it or if I really believe it myself. Mm. And I said, that's a healthy conversation to have. And I said, so the Lord doesn't want you to just take a chance. That's not what this is about. It's not about
this ain't Monopoly.
Exactly right. It ain't. I said there's a lot of people. The lottery. Did you see this lottery was at like $1.2 billion?
We got our tickets earlier. No, I ain't seen it.
The lottery was at $1.2 billion, and one guy in Illinois hit it.
Oh wow!
And he is going to ruin his life.
Yeah.
The guy.
It wouldn't ruin mine if I got $1.2 billion.
The guy that gets the $1.2 billion will ruin his life. And I was looking at I was listening to.
What does he get, like 70%?
No. You get it all if you take the installments. And here's the application I want to make. This is the application for the Christian. There's this real. I was thinking about that because I was like, I don't even know what I would do with $1 billion. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I know what I'd do.
What? See, what would you do?
Well, I mean, we can do the whole thing right now.
No, but you don't know what you would do. You have an idea what you would do with it. Like I'd buy land, or I'd buy a new truck, or I'd buy
I'd invest it.
Yeah, whatever. For what reason?
For the Lord.
I mean, I'm just saying, but okay, let's just say that.
I'm not saying I'd put it in the stock market. I'm saying I'd invest it like in business and in people.
Let's just say you gave $800 million to the Lord.
Yeah, right.
Do you realize what a burden that would be on the church?
Exactly.
So if you think if we went to our elders and we're like, Tom, Brian, and Chip, here's $800 million. Like contribution this week. The little box.
Let me remind you, Brian and Chip. Let me remind you what that it says that a bishop is not greedy.
Verse 53.
Filthy lucre.
Right. And so, you think about those things, right? Yeah. What a burden that would be. But I thought about this, and I was listening. I was reading this. What got me talking was I was just looking at some financial stuff, just trying to really.
Planning for what's coming up with the church, yeah.
Well, my financial stuff,
okay.
My personal stuff. And there was a guy that wrote an article about it. And he said the best thing that anybody can do that gets $1 billion, he said, is do not take the lump sum. Mm-hmm. And the reason,
not greedy for money.
The reason why they don't need to take the lump sum is because, and this was perfect sense, and I thought about what a tremendous spiritual application. Listen, wherever you're at in your walk with the Lord, and you're trying to be evangelistic, just know this one thing: you're going to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. You're going to say stupid things. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to mess it up. You're not going to know the answers to everything. And the guy made this application. He said, the people that take the lump sum, they have no idea what to do with the money. Mm-hmm. But if they give it to you over 30 years, you take a $1.2 billion over 30 years, that's about $40 million a year, okay? About $40 million a year. That's about $3.6 million a month, which is about $900,000 a week. Okay, so
how much a week?
$900,000 a week.
Chris has already worked all this out in his head.
Well, I was just doing it just now. I thought that sounds pretty close.
Yeah.
So you just think about this. He said he made this perfect point. He said, you give somebody, you take the lump sum, you get 70%, 60%, right? 60% of $1 billion, $600 million. You give somebody $600 million, they're going to be coming out of the woodworks. Right, you'll be buying islands, and you'll be buying gold-plated Lamborghinis or something like that, like the Arabs do. I saw that the Crown Prince of Saud has got 5 cars that are gold-plated. Okay, when you got so much money when you gold-plate your cars. All right, we think we're big timers. We got a gold tooth, right? They got gold-plated cars, right?
Yeah.
So you take that. He said that all those people. It's statistically proven that they're going to waste all that money. He said, because you don't know what to do with it. Mm-hmm. He said, but if you take the payout, if you see the long game, then it's just $40 million a year. You may waste 3 or 4 years worth of it. Mm-hmm. But then the 5th year, you're going to get $40 million again.
Smarter. Yeah.
And then the 6th year, you're going to get $40 million again. And the 7th, and then before long, you're still going to start getting traction. You're going to you'll start getting used to having that money. And
we're not encouraging anybody to buy a ticket, by the way.
No, absolutely not. But I'm saying the spiritual application is that because you're going to make mistakes, God wants you to be clean in all those things. So whatever you do, let's just say that you decide that you're going to have a cookout. Like we had the Sunday morning, we had our fellowship meal, right? What was the purpose of having the fellowship meal?
The fellowship, to get to know each other better, to encourage each other.
Yep. That was an internal thing, right? Mm-hmm. Every first Sunday, what do?
We have a Sunday night meal.
But we don't call it a fellowship meal, do we?
No.
Why do we not call it that for?
We
want it to be a different focus, right? So we want somebody to invite somebody, right? You may do that for 5 years and waste it and nobody come. You may do that for 10 years and nobody come at all. But it'll be worth it for the one person.
Yeah.
So what you've got to see is the long game.
Yeah, I mean, we're like, well, we're just eating, and then like 15. I got, a boy in your shop class. His daddy came to one of our recent ones.
Yeah.
Well, I got to have a 45-minute Bible study with him. You know, sat down to eat with him. I just sat down beside him just to chat with him for a minute. I wasn't planning on getting into a study, and it's like, here we are.
So this family that came this week, we won't mention their name, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But this family that came this week, let me tell you something interesting that happened that only I picked up on, and it's because it was something happened to me. When we first met them, this guy works with another one of our members that was a recent convert. Mm-hmm. So I baptized this guy in like March.
The people know if you keep giving details.
Yeah, just 3 or 4, a couple years ago, right? And so the guy that he works with, invited him to our house, right? And it was a really interesting supper. His wife, they had a baby at the time. And
brand new, yeah.
Brand new. I mean, they still have a baby. I mean, but he's just not as much of a baby.
Yeah.
And I invite them in, and so she's feeding the baby, and I said, hey, I'll fix your supper. I'll fix your plate while you're feeding the baby. And she said, okay, can you finish feeding him? And then she said the name. And can you finish feeding him? And I said, sure. Well, I happen to have the same last name. I happen to have the same name, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought she was talking to me. She was actually talking to her husband. So I grabbed the baby and I finished feeding him.
Yeah.
Now I fed a bunch of baby boys.
Right.
I've done that many
Nothing
times.
Nothing new for you. It was just
It was just logistics.
6 years later,
right?
Whatever.
It was just logistics for me. So I'm feeding him, and I'd made her plate, and I set it down, and she sat down to eat, and I'd only got through the salad when that question was posed. Mm-hmm. So I said, you can go get some more. She kind of looked like, oh, okay, good. And I thought, that was weird, right? Mm-hmm. And after that night, there was because I'm going to have these things out in the open, like, hey, why is this weird to you for? And this was a challenge for her, and she said there's just a lot of stuff going on in the world today, and this was in the throes of the coronavirus, and a lot of different things that were going on. And I said,
this is a neat statement she made, though. Because you're talking about breaking down barriers, really.
Yeah, and she said there's just a lot of racism out there, and I suppose, and she said this is the first time I've been out of my house since last March, and this was a year later.
She hadn't even been to her mama's house.
She said, I'm going to see my mama tomorrow for the first time.
And what was neat, too, is you were the first white people she'd ever ate with.
And I didn't realize
in their house.
I didn't realize that till afterwards. Because Aiden baptized Darren at camp a month ago or whatever it was now. And Aiden, obviously my oldest son, Aiden is white and Darren's black. So,
right.
There's been black people in my house for a long, long time. So it didn't, you get regular to things and you don't think about them.
Sure.
And so I didn't think about it. And so I remember thinking like that was a big deal. Right. And Jessica and I talked about that afterwards. But this Sunday, now I'd say this, when we got back from camp, he had to have some surgery done.
Yeah.
And
her husband,
it was a mess too.
Yeah,
it was a mess. And so
he's big as this toothpick and then lost another 18 pounds.
Yeah. When I was at the hospital, Bob, it was just a mess. Because I was over, I went to the hospital to see him the day before we went to camp.
Yeah.
And that Friday night we were coming back, and probably about the time you're pulling over fixing Tamara's car, some of our members, he texted me because I was like, hey, how you doing? And he said, well, I'm kind of in a bind. I got this special diet. Well, so Saturday morning I roll out and I go to town and I told Jessica, I said, because we've interacted with them a lot. We've done a lot of things with them, and I've helped them, do a lot of things. And, Chip, I don't know if you even know this, but he was talking to me one day, and he said, I need to get my van sprayed. And I said, hey, they fixing to do Chip's house. Just go over there and see if they'll do it. And Chip just said, hey, yeah, go ahead and, knock.
Got it for free.
Yeah, got it for free. And so...
Spray foam insulation.
Yes, spray foam insulation. And so that's the church, right? The church was doing that, and all these other things. And the church has freed up my time by not requiring me to have another job, that I can go on a Tuesday afternoon and run sweat down my back, helping him work on his van because he wants to make his business mobile. He wants to have a mobile aspect to his business. And so the church here realizes that is an important part of evangelism, is not us piled up in our office writing bulletin articles.
And there's times whenever we do need to research for our next lesson or whatever, but they also understand too that, like, Bob's lesson might not be the best this Sunday. It might not have been the best this past Sunday or whatever, but they also understand, like, well, what was he doing Monday through Friday? Because that's what's important.
Yeah, or when you got grease all the way down your arm and you don't realize it, you just taught class, because I washed my hands to get the grease off my hands, but I didn't see that it was on the backside of my arm. And somebody says you got grease all over you, and it's not the hey, you look nasty coming in here like that. They just know, right? We were busy doing something, and so I get to do that thing. And then that Saturday, I went and bought them all their stuff that they needed, and I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna use my church card this time instead of me doing it. And I had to go find chicken feet. I never had to buy chicken feet before. Not feed. I'd call the store like, you got any chicken feet? And they'd say,
feet.
No.
With a T. I think we talked about this on another podcast too.
I don't know if
the
we
feet
did.
part.
But they were like, no, it's feed. And I said, I don't need feed. I need feet. And so I went and bought them the feet. And when I got to their house, I could give them the chicken feet and the rest of the food that they wanted, diapers and everything else. And I could say, hey, the church got this for you. The church got this for you.
This is from the church.
Yeah, because I used the church card. And, I told Chip, one of our elders, I said, hey, I used the church card. And I told him why, and he just grinned, and he said, good call. And I didn't have to call him and ask him, is it okay for me to do this? It was automatic.
Would it be appropriate?
Yeah, it was automatically okay to do that.
Right.
And so.
Well, what's a real blessing is we sat in a meeting with our elders, and I remember one time you were talking about this guy that broke down by your house, and you thought you might have been late for church or whatever. And I'll never forget this, but, our elder said, Chris, if you ever need one of us to preach on Sunday morning because you're helping somebody and you think that can be something for the gospel, like, just let us know. We'll preach for you.
Yeah, Woodham said, I keep sermons in my Bible for that reason.
That's right.
And then what was even better is he followed it up with, like, that's what you need to do, right? Just making sure that's like, it ain't just lip service, right? But this Sunday, that family was here for our assembly for the first time, for the whole assembly, right?
For the whole family.
Yep, they've came for different things, like different.
Or he might have came for something or whatever, but now they were all together as a whole family.
Well, we had our fellowship meal, and because I don't care what I eat, like I don't need to I mean, like I like, to be the first one to get all the good stuff, but I really don't care per se, and so I just wait till all the line dies down and everything like that before I go up there, and it gives me a chance because people are eating. They don't want to get up, so I'll go and sit down with them. Well, I went and sit down with that family, and you know what his wife asked me? She saw that I wasn't eating. She said, "Do you want me to go fix you a plate?"
Oh, yeah.
And I thought, that's a win right there.
That's one that came in from the – that's one that had been deposited in the bank.
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Right.
And so, but now and I can't tell you, I've had Bible studies with him, but for whatever reason, you've been able to nail down a time with him. And so what a blessing that is.
For us all work together.
Yeah, for us all to work together. And it's because you're being evangelistic.
Yeah. Oh, and then, there was something that came up with me one day, and I'm out sweating and like crazy, and then all of a sudden I'm getting a text from you like, are you not meeting with such and such to do a Bible study? I'm like, dude, I totally forgot. And then you pulled up my Slack, to take care of the study. I know, but I'm just saying it's the church,
that's
everybody working together.
That's right. It's neither here nor there.
So it's such a blessing. And so what's going to be amazing is like one day when these people when they're all talking about the stories that when they've led people to Christ.
Absolutely.
And that's what Paul talked about. He said, what's our joy or our crown, talking about them being as apostles, and we're not apostles. Y'all know that if you listen to this podcast long enough. But like, what's your joy, your crown? He said, "Is it not you in the presence of Christ when He comes back?"
Amen.
And that's the power. That's why you do it. So that's why we'll move the church assembly outside on a Sunday night to the parking lot. And that's really what needs to happen at some of our buildings across America is we need to take the services to the parking lot. And how can you interact with the community? You need to take your services to the park. And how can you interact and get people to come, because they may not come to your building. It may be scary. And I mean, I know what to expect when I walk into the Lord's church somewhere, but still walking into a new building, like, I don't know what I'm going to see when I walk in that building. Right. It's all a new experience for people. For some people, it's scary.
Absolutely.
But they might be able to, hey, we're having a barbecue. Me and some friends are getting together. We're having a barbecue on a Sunday evening at whatever, such and such park, Hinton Park. And, we're going to have a barbecue, bring the kids, bring a lawn chair, and what a blessing that would be, and you can probably get somebody to come to something like that. Well, it's going to take different actions, but we're so blessed, and I know we've said it, I don't know how many times on this podcast, but that's what drew me to KW was the vision that our shepherds had for evangelism, and we want to pay you to go to the gym, all right. And it's those interactions that you get to have with people. Ben yesterday, he got paid to play basketball all afternoon. Well, he met 30 people over at the college campus. Well, where else where are you gonna meet those people? You got to go into all the world.
I got paid to rebuild the complete rear assembly of a bush hog. I built it from scratch yesterday. Yeah. The whole thing. And you hear
the Apostle Paul over here? Lest I boast above all measure, thorn in the flesh was given to me.
Somebody's got to be the best. I mean, I don't know what to say.
What's it like at the top of the flagpole?
It's lonely.
But here's what
I'm just saying, but I love doing that.
Oh yeah.
And the guy that I was helping, I thanked him over and over again. And I remember the first time I thanked him, he looked at me like, "Why do you do that for?
Why are you thanking me for that?" Well,
it's like,
buddy, you don't know, but you're fixing that dude. That dude had the worst day of his life because his bush hog got broke down, and he's like, "What am I gonna do?" And somehow Chris Donovan popped in his mind, probably because he thought he was going to get it for free or cheap, but he did. He had no clue. He had no clue what he was in for, how much that time was going to cost him, because he was fixing to be knee deep in the Word of God.
Well, here's another cool part too. All the metal that I used didn't cost me anything,
mm-hmm.
and it's because I got it from Jones College, and that was because of our contacts with the stuff we're doing with the kids on Thursday.
Yeah.
And so,
and what's neat too is, the power of influence is, I mean, my 15-year-old, I mean, he's proclaimed, one day I want to be a machinist, well, that ain't because his daddy knows zero about machining. You've talked to his daddy, I'm sure. But you've seen his daddy how try to hold a micrometer,
Yeah, but I sure do love his daddy.
Yeah,
too.
But that's the power of your influence, that that's what he wants to do. He sees the value in it.
Well, he's real smart too, because now he comes to me. He's maybe learning, but he comes to me and he says, "Mr. Chris, can you do this?" He wants to do that, modify this or that or the other. I know that we've turned a corner when they're thinking about things that
turning the machine on the right way.
Well, you're right. Yeah. Well, that's another lesson.
Yeah.
But that's a grace lesson.
Yeah.
And right. When they can now think through, and that's what you want the church to be able to do, is see what they can do. Mm-hmm. Right. So doing all these things with the kids, now they can say, "Hey, I know that I can do this thing," and he'll come to me and he'll say, "Mr. Chris, can you do this?" And my answer always now is no.
Mm-hmm.
I won't do it for him no more.
Yeah.
And the reason why is not because I don't love him and want to help.
Yeah.
It's
because you do love him and you do want to help him.
Exactly. And the way I'm going to do that is I could do it in 15 minutes, or I can let you fumble through it for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be
15 days.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's going to be a lot better for you to fumble through it for 4 hours, because eventually the 4 hours is going to turn into 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so that's what you got to realize as the church, is that you're going to fumble through this, and it's awkward, and you're not going to do it right. This is the problem with techniques. I love that there are brothers out there that are teaching a technique, and they're teaching these kind of standardized ways of doing it, and this
great intentions.
But the challenge with that is that
if I get asked a question during the middle of that technique, like, okay, you need to be able to yell Omaha,
right?
Omaha. You need to be able to call it audible.
Yes, exactly. And so you got to ask and answer those questions. And so the challenge with the technique methods is that it sets you up for, like, if like high school coaches, they only run a few plays. Mm-hmm. They only do a few plays.
Oh, I know.
And it's because
0.27 makes W on 2.
Yeah, bear gap 63. And so the reason why you do that is because you can't complicate the process, right?
Yeah.
But that's why an NFL quarterback has got a on his
flip arm chart.
A flip arm chart, right? So when they show the chicken head, they know what the chicken head means is weak on the sideline.
Yeah.
And so, but that's the difference, right? That's the difference in the high school player and the guy that's getting paid
more advanced, right?
Yeah, but it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay to just have 3 plays in, right?
Yeah. We're talking about influence. Maybe because of this podcast, me mentioning these guys, they might get a little more. We might get them a few more views on their channel, but we went to see Dude Perfect, in live, and really what I was paying for was to go watch 5 old college buddies just have a good time, and have a friendly competition. It'd be the same thing as Ben right out here with this basketball goal with these kids or his college buddies, and like, hey, we're going to have a little competition, Mm-hmm. Who can hit this shot from right out here, and whoever's the last one's eliminated. Well, that's all they did. We paid to go to to New Orleans to watch them have a friendly competition. Now, it was fun, it was entertaining, but the reason why it was fun and entertaining for kids is because they had invested in these guys with their videos, and of course they're all clean. But what I wanted to get to though is so they did this whole competition thing, and I won't go into all the details or whatever for New Orleans, but the guy who won, he just got like this gold chain, and it was a New Orleans trophy or whatever, and so he's the New Orleans winner for their little tour or whatever. Thank y'all for helping us make, a few $1 million tonight. Exactly. I mean, they're throwing footballs from the top, and whoever loses, you're out.
Right.
Whoever wins, you get to keep going.
Right.
And
right.
it's I'm paying for this.
Right.
But of course, it's a big show, and
right.
The kids got to waste birthday money on Dude Perfect little lightsabers and whatever. So. It was the experience that they had such a fun time. But at the end,
you paid so your kids could be happy.
Paid so my kids could be happy, right. And same way that the Lord did. He paid so that His kids could be happy.
Right, exactly.
And so, at the end of the night, these guys they said they stopped the show. They did the confetti. One guy wins. They hand him the trophy, and then they said, "Listen, We've gotten a lot of feedback from our tour last year, and we did this last year too." They said, but what we want you to know is that this stuff right here is not really important to us. What's important to us is our relationship with Christ. And they said, we're going to go grab a drink, and you can consider yourselves dismissed, but we're going to come back here in about 5 minutes, and we would like to share our story with you. And so, they got 15,000 kids or whatever. That's preacher count. I don't know how many was there. But but so about a third of the people get up and leave. So 5,000 people get up and leave. And roughly 10,000 are there. And so they said, okay, we get 3 questions, normally. These are our top 3 questions. One's, who's Panda? That's their little mascot dude, whatever. They're like, it's top secret, So they didn't release that. Then they said, how long does it take you, to take a shot or whatever? They're like, the longest one that we've ever taken, it's taken us 2 days to actually get the shot right. And then the third one is, after all the fame and fortune, how are you guys still together? And they said, what we want you to know is that the world will tell you there's a lot of things that they want you to put your identity and fame or your identity and fortune, and you just start your your next YouTube channel because of this or whatever. They said, but the reason why we're still together is because it's not about us, it's about the Lord. And so I was kind of cautious, like, okay, what are you gonna hear? What are these guys actually gonna say?
Right.
But
this prayer.
yeah, and so I thought they were gonna do all that, but they didn't. They just said this: listen, we believe in a simple gospel message that 2,000 years ago God came in the flesh, lived as Jesus Christ, he lived a sinless, perfect life. He died on the cross for our sins, and he was resurrected the third day, and he's sitting on the throne with God. And they said, you need to have the gospel living in your life.
Amen.
And then the guy who won the trophy,
the chain guy,
he got to close everybody in prayer. And so I just thought, my kids didn't go there. They didn't, they would have enjoyed probably watching some, whoever, Bo and Luke Duke. They wouldn't know who Bo and Luke Duke is.
They're good old boys.
Me and you would enjoy watching Bo and Luke Duke try to shoot basketball or whatever, just because we grew up watching the Dukes of Hazzard, Right. But when the Bo and Luke Duke of your kids' lives will tell you, you need to live out the gospel. And I don't know those guys. I don't know their full beliefs or any of those things.
Right.
But
what they said was true.
What they said was true.
Right.
And it's like, so wherever you're at today, whether you got their first video has 47 million views on it. And so whether you got 47 million views from somebody in your life or you got two little eyes looking up at you, like, use your influence and use your example to teach people about Jesus.
Amen.
This is the Unscripted Podcast.